Well, if you've heard me share stories through the years, you've probably heard me share some encounters, some Michigan encounters. Now, one of them would have been an encounter with a Wendigo on Isle Royal National Park, or at Isle Royal National Park. You might have heard me share a story about a Bigfoot encounter at Lost Nation State Game Area. You might have also heard me share about the Michigan Dog Man from Allegan State Game Area. But tonight, I may share the most harrowing encounter I've ever had in Michigan, and that is my Northern Michigan WOMBATS encounter. So to start this off, I'll say a number of years ago in the late 80s, 1989, 1990, I started mountain bike riding and mountain bike racing. And my first races is where this encounter happened. And my first race, now mountain bike racing can be dangerous, especially when you're a newcomer to the sport. I remember the first race that I was at, somebody was down on their hands and knees and puking their guts out partway through the race. And there's a bike laying next to them. It didn't look like that much fun as I rode past. At another race, one of those early races, I remember it felt like you were riding uphill all the time, it seemed like. And finally we had a downhill, and you could go really fast down this hill. But at the bottom, there was a blind curve, not quite 90 degrees, probably 70 degrees. And as soon as you went around that curve, there was a 2-track, but it was covered with water, completely obscured with water for about 75 feet. And if you weren't in one of the 2 tracks, if you were in the middle, it was very slippery. And many riders went down, and when they fell down, they were covered from head to toe with mud. And on the second lap of that race, I remember a rider behind me, I could hear him coming. He was going really fast, and he gained ground on me, but he was way out of control. He was swerving all over, and he ran into the side of me, broke my pedal. I was able to finish the race, but it was a little bit frightening. On my very first mountain bike race, I remember after the race, I was really excited and relieved. I finished it, and I was happy about that. And I remember there was a tall guy. He was probably like 6'3", 6'4", middle-aged, probably about 45, had a pretty good-sized belly on him. And he was laughing, and it looked like he was feeling the same way I was feeling. And a moment later, he was down on the ground. A woman was screaming, and it turned out he was in cardiac arrest. And they called North Flight, and a helicopter took him away. I'm not sure if he survived or not. So it can be dangerous in the northern woods when you're riding or racing your bike. Now, on the third race that I did in 1990, this is northwest of Traverse City in Leelanau County. The races, if you go to them, usually they have different divisions will start. Like the men's pros, they're going to go first because they don't want them running up and catching other riders. And then they might have the ladies pros, and then some of the better amateur riders, and then the slower amateur riders. And I was in that slower group. And when the race started, there would be a couple hundred riders, probably 250 riders, all together in a bunch, and you're riding pretty close to them, and you could see people all over. Now, the laps were like 7-8 miles long, and I remember as I came around the first lap, I had to do 2 laps. When I came around the first lap, you didn't see so many riders anymore. You weren't seeing hundreds of riders. I was seeing maybe a dozen riders, a few riders in front of me, a few riders behind me, a couple riders next to me. But somewhere along the way, as I was making my loop through the woods on that second lap, it got to a point where I could no longer see any riders in front of me, and I could no longer see any riders behind me. I was all alone. And that is when it happened. All of a sudden, from behind me, I heard a noise. And it was such a technical part of the trail, I couldn't turn my head. I had to stay focused on the trail. But after a while, I could hear the noise getting a little louder, and there was a point where I was able to turn around for just a glance. And I could see it. Here were two riders. They were female riders. And when I saw them, I thought, I'm going to try to stay in front of them. But they were the female pro riders, and there was no way I was going to be able to stay in front of them. So they were catching me. And as they got closer, I remember one of them called out, "Hey, you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. You're almost there." Doing a great job encouraging me. And then they passed me and went on. And so probably about this time, you might be wondering, wait a minute, I thought you were going to share about a wombats encounter. I did.
What?
Yes. The riders that passed me, the first rider, I recognized who she was. It was Jackie Phelan. And the reason I knew Jackie Phelan was because I was a subscriber to Mountain Bike Action magazine, which was one of the early mountain biking magazines. It was promoting the sport. And every month there was an article in there by Jackie Phelan. And she was promoting mountain biking for women, both riding and racing. And so at the top of the article, they would have, it was Women's Mountain Bike and Tea Society by Jackie Phelan. But above that, there was the acronym that went by. WOMBATS. Yes. Women's Mountain Bike and Tea Society. So,
Get the hook.
yeah. So her goal of promoting women's mountain biking, she was a success at that. The group still exists today. Jackie Phelan was a big deal back then. In the mid-'80s, she raced, she won for 6 years in a row, every race she entered, on a bike that her husband, Charlie Cunningham, had built. He just passed away just a few weeks ago, but he was a mountain bike designer, one of the pioneers in that, and she won tons of races. She was inducted in the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame, and so she's a big deal. And not only for promoting women's mountain biking and mountain bike racing, but also promoting, in the middle of a race, that she ended up finishing second that day, but in the middle of a race, she had the kindness and the presence of mind to be able to encourage a fledgling newbie mountain bike guy. And that is my story of my Northern Michigan Wombats encounter.